just glide over it, but we'll see. So I want to talk to you about agile project management today. And I kind of want to tell you a story. I don't really want to stand up and say, oh, I'm an expert in agile project management, because I'm not. But I'm an expert in, help, I need agile project management to save my sanity. And I want to tell you that story, basically. So I got a new job 2 years ago, which was head of data science at the strategy, which weirdly was announced at the NHS-R conference. Like, that's kind of how that news made its way into the world, which is a bit of a weird loop. So during the time that I've been trying to kind of get this project under control, I've drawn from, I think, 3 wells of knowledge, basically. One being Agile and Scrum. Now, my team are not going to play a drinking game where every time I say the word Agile, they drink, because they will not survive, and nor would they in our stand-up meetings either. I have drawn from the well of MLOps. I don't know if I'm going to get time to say that or not, but I did. And also, I just want to point out that I have also drawn a lot from the skills and experience of those around me, data scientists in my team who are all wonderful and fabulous, and others as well. And I'm going to disclaimer now, because I might forget later, and I don't want to say this every time. If I say I found this, or I did this, or I don't really mean I, what I mean is I made an offhand comment in a team meeting once, and all my brilliant team went and tried it, and it worked. That's what I mean every time. I haven't done any of this stuff because I'm nowhere. I haven't done any of this stuff. I just have been supervising. So that's the caveat out of the way. Right. Yes. And the other caveat, I always apologise, and then you can see what you think. I just want to say, I'm not going to properly define Scrum. I'm not going to properly define. If you want to know what those things are, don't listen to me. Google them, because I know that I'm wrong about Scrum, and I'm probably wrong about MLOps because I don't know enough about it. Right. So we've been working on the new hospital program. I don't really have time to tell you kind of much about that, really, in terms of what it is. It's a model that's been in development for some time, and it's a model that basically predicts acute demand in acute hospitals in a decent sort of range in the future. When I first joined the strategy unit, it was kind of chill. It was cool. They were like, hey, Chris, there's this cool, chill project you can work on. Hey, look at this. And they were just having meetings and chatting and like, oh, should we try this? And it was all wonderful. And then by April, like, the heat was like turning up, and they were like, well, we really should start thinking about doing something with this. And then by October, for lots of reasons that are way too complicated and difficult to get into here, suddenly we were like, this is going into production like now. And we were not ready. I was not ready. We were not ready. And that was hard. And I want to tell you the story about how I've managed how hard that was. So we switch into what I call euphemistically operational mode, but what I actually mean by that is everything's on fire, running around like headless chicken mode. And yes, that was around the time that we were looking for deployment, and the team was growing. So I was recruiting people because there was way too much work. And while I was recruiting, there were 2 things that I needed to do. Number one was increase the bus factor for Tom. We heard about bus factor earlier. Bus factor basically is how many people do you need to kill in order to have your data science things fail. And I talk about them much too graphic a way in my team meetings, and it worries people. But I want to keep them alive. That's the whole point of what I'm doing. And also just deploy, like get it ready, like write code. So build a team around Tom, who wrote loads of fabulous, wonderful, amazing code long before I got to the strategy unit, and also just write more code. And we were in such a mess that even I wrote code. So if you look at the very, very early releases, you can see proudly Chris Beeley made a pull request that repo, and last one I ever did. Right, so we deployed it in December. This is December of last year. And straight away, there were loads of things that we'd not thought of, because that's what you get. And we were like, oh, okay, that's not good. And that was quite stressful and difficult. And then, so we came back and did it, and we're like, oh, we got this new thing now. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, there's all the... And we kind of went through that a bit as well. And basically, by March, we were confused and tired, and it was all my fault, basically. It was a tough time. It was good in the sense of we did loads of awesome work, and it worked, and the project has been really great and fabulous, but it was hard work for people. It wasn't... The data science was good, but the people element they were struggling a bit, frankly. So, and it was indeed all my fault. So, what did I do? So what did we do? So we introduced Scrum. We're not doing proper Scrum. People debate this a lot. I don't think you can make Scrum work in data science, but when you read all the Scrum stuff, it says you must implement Scrum exactly, otherwise it will not work at all. So feel free to slack me and tell me I'm an idiot. That's totally fine. My team do it all the time. So in Scrum, we're using some of the concepts, though, and they are product owner, Scrum master, and everyone else. Basically, the product owner is the person who decides what's in the roadmap, what's in the backlog, like what are you doing? The Scrum Master is the person who kind of organizes it all, like you're going to do this, you're going to do this, why haven't you done this yet, all this kind of thing, and then just everybody else. We do 5-week sprints, which are quite long. And as I say, that's one of the things where we're not doing proper Scrum because the sprints are too long. And we have what's called a recovery run or a fallow week, depending on which team member you are, between each one because people like to do something other than just go, we haven't finished the sprint yet. And we have a few meetings. So we have a sprint planning meeting, which is quite long, which I think is really good. I'm going to wax lyrical about how much I love Scrum. One of the things that I love Scrum is that it really gives you permission to talk about what you're doing a lot, especially up front. So we sit down for a long time, for 3 hours, but we have a 90-minute, we have a break because Yiwen turns into a gremlin at the 90-minute mark. Bless her, she might be watching at home. We love Yiwen, but she does get cranky after 90 minutes. And we talk about it for a long time, and that's really useful. Then we have a sprint catch-up where we just tell what's going on every week, and then we have a retro. And I'm going to talk more about retros in a bit, but that's like, how did it go? How was it for you? Kind of a thing. Oh, look, here it is. I know these slides so well. So in a sprint retro, basically what you do is you talk about what went well, what could have gone better, and what to improve next time. And the thing that I really, and again, something else that I really love about Scrum is it really forces you to focus on process. So my team are always just beating themselves up. They come to retro and they go, oh, I didn't do this thing and I forgot to do it and I'm such a failure and it's all terrible. And I always say to them, no, that's not like, the purpose of this exercise isn't that you remember how to do everything. The purpose of this exercise is that we build processes that mean that you don't need to remember to do everything. And that, so every time something goes wrong in a sprint, it's always a failure of process because everyone is trying their best. And humans are not perfect robots. So, and I just think Scrum, that's quite an obvious point, isn't it? And I think that's why it's hard to do talks like this, because it feels like I'm just saying loads of really obvious things for 25 minutes, but I wish someone had said this to me 2 years ago, and I'm saying the thing that I wanted to hear 2 years ago to you in case you need to hear it. Anyway, having said that it's important to look at process and not blame individual, I think it does actually require quite a lot of maturity and trust in a team to bring up issues. And we've had some difficult retros. Actually, we've had some sprints that have kind of gone wrong in a moderately serious way. I mean, no one died, but, you know, like, stuff didn't work. And that can be hard to talk about. And I think that's, again, something that I think Scrum kind of forces you to address, really, is it forces you to be the kind of team that can have those kind of conversations. And I think that's really awesome. And at the end of each retro, you should agree on one process improvement which goes in the next sprint. So at the end of every single sprint, you improve your team. And that, yeah, what another brilliant concept, I think. So, why is Scrum? So this is just me just saying Scrum is great, basically, for 20 minutes. So I think the reason why we need Scrum, really, the reason why we need something like this is because we have to release all our code simultaneously, basically, because we've made change here. So I don't at all, it's a shame I don't have time to talk about what I'm actually talking about, but there's this thing that we're doing, and it requires multiple things to all happen at the same time. We can't just change one thing, and then it doesn't work that way. And so having this kind of sprint structure allows us to go, right, this is the point, we do all the model release, we do all the QA, we do everything, all the testing and everything, all at the same time. The team works autonomously. Now, I work in a very, awesome organization, and I'm recruiting next year, so hint, hint. So, I'm not worried about people coming into my team and going, oh, why are they? I don't really work in that kind of organization. But it's an important thing, I think, to note about Scrum, that it does say the best team is an autonomous team. And I really believe that. So that's really cool. It helped me a lot because I can have better conversations about no. In the previous pre-Scrum days, I would just react to whatever people, there were all these different people saying, oh, we really need this, oh, we really need this, oh, we really need this. And I hadn't really learned how to deal with that. So I go, oh, yeah, I'll get the team to do that. Oh, I'll get the team. And they were just like, that's not how you... So now, if you come to me in week 2, no, forget it. Just don't even talk to me. It's talk to hand. And that's really good, but people respect that, and I could work in an organisation that is bad and doesn't, and someone asked me yesterday, in fact, they asked me that exact question, what do you do if you work in an organisation that doesn't trust it? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Someone do a talk next year where they answer that question, but don't name your organisation. You have to say, I'm from organisation X, and I've come to tell you, blah, 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 with a bag on your head. Yes, and the planning and the retro and all this kind of stuff, it improves the team. I think that's the thing that I really like about Scrum as well, is that the object of action isn't, we spend so much time thinking about code, but we don't think about the team. And I think, yeah, Scrum has really made me think about the team. And I think that's awesome. So I'm a product owner. That's my job in the team. So I kind of, I talk to everyone and say, what do you want, kind of thing. How long will it take? You know, blah, blah, blah. And I think my big lesson of being a product owner was just to get out of the way, basically. So when we started doing it, I would come into the scrum and be like, oh, have you remembered to do this? And oh, I was just looking at, you know, I try in a spirit of being helpful, not like that, but just like, oh, what's going on? And I was just completely getting in the way. So you want to be like, no, Chris, we already did that. Well, no, we're not doing it. You know, like I was just getting in the way. I was just wasting everyone's time. And I think that tells you something about Scrum, but I think it just tells me something about how to work as well, I think. It's the idea of having like a clear role. My role is outside the sprint. That's where I belong. And so that's what I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to just leave them to it. Like, and that's also about it being autonomous, isn't it? I don't know what's going on in that box. It's a box that, like, I trust the box. I'm going to go over here and do something else. And that was great, and it worked really well. I think another thing that it really helped me with, and then I'm still struggling with this, and yeah, I occasionally bang my head on the desk and talk about how I'm struggling with it. We've got this thing like high-level planning, like something that's going to take 3 months. I sort of get them. Like people ask, oh, we need to, and I'm like, oh, that's very difficult and complicated. And there's like, oh, this button's the wrong colour, and I'm fine with that. I'll go, oh, can someone change it? And they all go, yeah. But there's this bit in the middle that I kind of can't really get to. But Scrum has helped me address that. Scrum has helped me to kind of go, well, this is where we're going, and this is like next week. And it's helped me to, but there's still this really difficult bit that I could maybe talk about another day. Some obvious things in terms of I know when we're going to release code. I didn't really before, to be honest. Before we started using Scrum, I'd be like, oh, I'm not really sure. It'll probably take about 2 weeks, but we don't work like that now. We go, it'll be then. And in the project that we're working in, that's actually super important. And also responsibilities. I mean, this is not really Scrum. I guess it's like Kanban or, you know, this isn't unique. But everybody knows what they should be doing. And everybody knows what everybody else should be doing as well. And that's really awesome. Right. So this is the point where my team drink too much. So agility. So we started using Scrum and it was really good. And it really helped me, the structure of it. But I want to just talk about just the kind of the concept of agile. And there's loads and loads and loads of agile methodologies, and I say I don't claim to understand any of them because I don't want to make an idiot of myself. And because I have thought about agile quite a lot actually in the last kind of 6 or 12 months. So in 2022, I'm just going to confess something now. I'm going to say this is what I used to think agile was, and you may all think, well, you were an idiot 2 years ago. So like, but that's fine. I'm just telling you what I thought, just in case you think it too, and be like, oh yeah, no, there's more to it. So in 2022, I thought that basically what agile meant was customers can't make up their minds. You go to meetings and they go, oh, we want this different, you know, like, and it's hard to design software all at once. Nobody can conceive, you know, that's impossible. Or it's not impossible, but it's so difficult, it takes so long that it's not worth doing. And also that continuous delivery keeps customer happy. So, you know, the little skateboard, scooter, car thing. And for me, that's all agile was. It was just that. And it made a lot of sense and it worked and I got it and I thought it was important. But I really think I was missing some depths really that I've got on board with now. So I've been reading the Agile Manifesto amongst other things. And here are some of the kind of highlights of some stuff that's kind of a little bit deeper, I think, than what I was thinking it meant 2 years ago. So welcome changing requirements. That's a tough one. I think that's a courage. One of the values of Scrum is courage. Yeah, as a team, welcoming a changing requirement is not easy to do, and yeah, it's right there. So I think that's a really important one, actually. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective. Well, I've talked about that, but that's really important. The unit of improvement is the team. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. I think I'm going to talk about it on the next slide, aren't I? Yes, I am. And simplicity, the art to maximize the amount of work not done. I think that was their first thing in terms of like adopting this method and stuff. That was the first thing I noticed because we did a lot of stuff that was not worth doing, and that's bad, isn't it? And yeah, we don't know. So yeah. I think the thing about being agile is I think the thing about this project, we were too agile. So like in this early days of this project, we just did whatever people told us all the time. There was no, obviously we had like we kind of knew where we were going, but in terms of like the minute to minute activity, it was just pinging around basically. And And that's too agile. And I've sort of come to realise that agility is kind of like a mindset, really. It's something that I try and apply to what we're doing. And being agile isn't about going to a meeting and someone saying, I want the background of the dashboard another colour. It's about being able to review what you're doing and change the direction that you're travelling in frequently. And I think that the key thing is, thinking about it in those terms, is how often do you change direction? So before we started this, we were changing direction every 4 days, and that's too often. And now we change direction exactly every 5 weeks. Well, 6 weeks, I suppose, with the recovery one week. But a good code base and a good team is always ready to change direction, whether it changes or not. That's the thing that I've thought most of all. I think that's the really fundamental point that I've dwelt on. And when we discuss what to do and like all these things, that's the mindset that I try and apply. Is I think, for all I know, we're just going to carry on doing this for 6 months. This decision may stand forever until I retire. But if it didn't stand, how would that be? So I think of it as being like poised. That's how I like to think about it. A good code base and a good team is able to change direction whether it changes or not. And I think that's the thing that I totally missed about being agile. I just thought agile was just like, go to customers, talk to them, make it up as you go along. But it's actually not that at all. It's about a mindset, and it's about a way of building stuff and a way of organising your team that allows you to be reactive, but without being too reactive. So, yes, that's what I wanted to say about agile. Oh, I have got time for the LMLs, but okay. So like when I rehearsed this, it actually took way longer. So maybe I don't know why that was. Maybe I over-explained things and I've realised how bright you all are. MLOps. So somebody did talk about MLOps yesterday. So I don't want to kind of go into brass tacks for this because I don't want to bore you all. So MLOps is, I mean, this isn't a very MLA project that I'm talking about because it's not. Some of the stuff about MLOps is like keeping the model up to date and retraining and stuff, and we don't really have any, like, it's not really that kind of a model. But some of it is really relevant in the sense of we have a set of people who are using, like this is all in production. That's been the really hard thing, really, is we can't just take it down, it's got to run all the time. And not only has it got to run all the time, but it's got to run old things all the time as well. So we're kind of making updates to the software, but in the knowledge that actually in 6 months' time, someone might say, you know that model we ran 18 months ago, we want to change what, we want to rerun it or change one of them or something. We need to kind of be able to do that, and that has been incredibly difficult to keep something alive without kind of stopping. And that's, I think, partly where the sort of ideas of MLOps have come in. So, as I say, I don't want to define MLOps for you because I'll just get it wrong and look stupid, but I'm not really trying to do that. It's basically about getting code in and deploying it. So continuous integration in terms of like how do you get code into what you're doing, and deployment in terms of how do you make your code affect what's actually in production. So you have a level 0, 1, which is kind of a Jupyter notebook, and then you hand your Jupyter notebook to somebody else and say, put that in production for me, please. That's the kind of the ground floor. You have level 2, which is kind of incredibly whizzy and amazing, and you've got like a huge army of data scientists, and they can put any model in production anytime they like just by writing a bit of code. And that's all whizzy and amazing. And I think crucially, one of the things that's really important in MLOps is that it's all about the environments, as we've heard several times in the last 2 days. A level 0 MLOps pipeline can be very weak because the environments are not configured similarly at all, right? Never mind about identically. Whereas in level 2, one of the big things is like the environment is the environment, and that's obviously very important. And we're sort of level 1-ish, I would say. So the data pipelines are definitely wrap because they're an absolute nightmare with wrap. If they weren't wrapped, then I think everyone would have quit, including me. And they've also got quicker recently because we're using Databricks, which I don't know a thing about. But it's very whizzy and cool, and I've no doubt my team will be talking to people about it in the future. We do have a dev environment. I don't think we make as much use of it as we can be. We are thinking about that at the moment, but we certainly do have one, so we can put things up and see what they look like and mess around with them, and that's really important. And we do have sort of continuous deployment. So basically, when you merge to main, it deploys to a dev environment, and when you do a release, it deploys to the prod environment. I mean, I don't think we need to be like a level 2. I think one of the things about MLOps, just like RAP, is actually for some projects you don't have to go to the top, and we're not meta. We don't need to have like an army of data scientists pushing models all day. So, although I think we could probably go up a bit, but I don't think we need to kind of keep going and going and going. Some of the other concepts from MLOps that I think have been really important that we've thought about. So QA is very, I mean, it's very important. And it's very important with this project because people are building hospitals with it, which is a pretty big investment, I gather. But also because the data is very fiddly and there's lots of different definitions and like there's all these different people all doing different, and like the potential to screw up the data pipeline is massive, basically. And yeah, everyone at the front's nodding. And to be honest, I think we spend more time QAing the data than we do anything else, which I think says something, doesn't it, really? The model's fine. The model actually works really well. It's the data that doesn't really well, which is obviously a familiar story. We do QA at regular points. I think that's really important. So we have like let's sit down and look at all the QA, and we're doing that at the moment. But also, thanks to Rian, we also do it continuously. We were talking about in this GitHub session before. So every time we do something that's kind of QA-y, which we do not deliberately, we just do it because we were doing it anyway, like, oh, this matches with this output, or anything like that, we just tag it as QA in GitHub. So we've got a continuous record of QA, which I think is I honestly love it. I love it so much because when Rian joined, the QA was like quite clunky, and now it's very kind of smooth and GitHub-y and beautiful. So that's very cool. And just a few other things that I learned along the way. It doesn't matter who's right, it matters how people feel. Now, this is another from the school of the obvious, isn't it? And I know what I would be thinking 2 years ago if I was sitting in the audience. I'd be rolling my eyes and thinking, yes, I've heard that 1,000 times before, and I don't know how to say it in a different way. But I want to say anyway that I have been to some meetings, some very difficult meetings. Nobody's at blame. It's just people are making high-stakes decisions, difficult operational pressures, blah, 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 blah. And it's been really important. I suppose what I want to say to data scientists actually is you will do your job much more effectively in a room in which people feel okay about what you're doing and the decisions that you're making. And if you haven't made it your job to help them feel that way, then you need someone else in the room whose job it is to make them feel that way. I think that is the lesson I've learned, is that it needs to be somebody's job. I say this a lot, actually. It needs to be someone's job that X, because if something isn't someone's job, it doesn't get done. And I think the way people feel is easily forgotten about in all this talk of code and whizzy stuff. It's how you feel. And I don't do, as anyone who knows me, even briefly, that is not my job to make people feel good. If anything, I depress people. But there are people in my organization who do, and that's really important. I've witnessed that many times. Other things, transparency isn't, we talk about it in terms of like robust code analysis and all that kind of stuff, and that's really cool. But I think one of the things it's done that's really important for me is it actually builds relationships. So when we were talking to customers, they're used to dealing with people with like black box models who were like, oh, you can't know, it's all secret. You can't know why we're saying this stuff. But we didn't have that at all. We were quite the reverse. We were like, well, look, we'll show you the sequel. And that really made them feel involved. It made them think, well, these people know what they're doing, otherwise they wouldn't be so keen to show us everything. And also, they want to know they want us in the tent talking to them and doing those things. So I think that's really, really important. Bus factor, we talk about bus factor all the time. It's so important. I can't talk about how important it is because it's too important. It's super, super important. Think about it all the time. A bus factor of 2 is not enough. Bus factor of 3, I don't know. Keep going forever. You need lots and lots and lots of bus factor. And part of bus factor is documentation. If you haven't written it down, it doesn't exist. And I must say, you in my team is absolutely arch. So go out and find yourself a data scientist who insists you write everything down and give them a big stick because it will make your team better. Right, I'm just running to the edge of time, but I'm just going to want to very quickly finish talking about where we're going. Should I finish on the good news? Put the bullets the other way around. We're getting bigger, so I'm very interested in that. Oh, he's put the stop sign. I'm just like 20 seconds. We're getting bigger, and I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware that as a team gets bigger, you need to spend more time, documenting and thinking about, you need to think about how to transfer what you're doing and for people to read across. And, as teams get bigger, that's really, really important. But the thing I wanted to mention that's kind of like the good news story that I should have thought about finishing with in the first place is we've had a long discussion with the new hospital program about whether it's appropriate to open source this and the license and so on, and we have now concluded that discussion, so it will be open source. I do think this is quite important. It's quite a big, complicated, interesting model. I think it will help people to do acute care modelling, but I think it also will inform other people's ideas about all these kind of things. And I do want to just very quickly give credit. It's the Department of Health and Social Care and NHS England are both kind of jointly own the new hospital programme. It is a programme that is dedicated to building a better NHS, to producing learning projects, and it's something that's really a big part of what they're doing. And so actually the open source conversation was quite easy because they do actually genuinely want to build a better NHS through this programme, and therefore open source was an obvious thing to do. So I wanted to mention that as a good news story, and also to thank them that we are now able to do that. And I'm now going to stop talking. There's no question. Don't have questions. Yeah.
No question. Thank you very much, Chris. So now go to the next speaker. So now Sophia is going to talk us about the community talk, the Turing way. Thank you.
And I'm happy to give this talk again. Do I need a microphone or I'll stand at the lectern. I'll be very stately. There we go. All right, so hi, I am Sophia. As some of you may have gathered today, I am here talking about the Turing way. If you have not heard about the Turing way, you will very soon. I'm here to spread all of the good word, and I will be very transparent about today. I have two goals with this talk. The first is to tell you about all of the resources, or as many of the resources as I can in this time that exist within this massive guide. And the second is to convince you all to join our community. So at the end of 15 minutes, let me know which one I've actually kind of succeeded in. So the Turing way itself is many, many things. There we go. But what it primarily is a resource for anyone in this room to use, for everyone outside of this room to use, and it is also a community. Now, there are terms we've already had a little bit of an existential crisis today in some of the unconference sessions about, are we data scientists, are we data analysts, are we researchers, what are we? And a lot of these terms kind of are interchangeable, and despite what we have in the Turing way, it is a guide, it is a resource for everyone, and anyone here will be able to benefit from it in some way, shape or form. The first thing we do need to say, though, is that it is a lightly, highly opinionated guide to reproducibility, reusability, and everything in between when it comes to data science and working with data. It is an open source at its core project, and all of the resources in it is written, it is maintained, it is built and supported by a community. It is a living document that only exists because people like yourselves allow it to exist, and all of it is hosted on GitHub. Now, the core part is that best practices can't be built without people messing up a little bit, defining what best practices are, just defining what they're not. And so we truly believe that by having as many people from as many different backgrounds, whether or not you are a Scrum Master, product owner, whether or not you call yourself a data analyst, whether or not you are a clinician, or whether or not you're a physicist, everyone has something to share that can be added, or also something that can be used within this book. And in order to build something that is truly inclusive and accessible for everyone, we need to have this really diverse community. So its origins kind of started back when the reproducibility crisis was, front page in The Guardian and all the other news outlets. And that was really kind of where it started, as a guide for how to set up a reproducible pipeline, a RAP, as we've kind of been talking about a lot at this conference. Everything from version control, thinking about code quality, thinking about linting, thinking about CI/CD, and this was kind of the core. But so much more of the projects that we do are beyond just making things reproducible, making things reusable as well. And so it is now expanded into 6 guides and soon a forthcoming 7th. And in order to kind of support all of the different work that is going on, there is everything from how to set up task management in open source projects, how to think about science communication and writing things in plain language, potentially blog posts and different templates that we have. If you're new to GitHub, potentially how do you collaborate on GitHub? How do you host and make best use of remote meetings? And everything down to the legal aspects that we have of working with research ethics committees and IRBs. Then the final kind of handbook in the original 6 is the community handbook, which houses all of our templates as well as the community resources, the governance, and all of the open structures we have are all kind of documented within that, so that people like the wonderful community here is able to reuse anything in it. Now, I will warn you that this is not a book to be taken lightly. This is now a book that has over 250 chapters, as well as many, many, many different subsections. So when you come to the Turing Way, the idea is to kind of pick a path. You're looking for a specific piece of information. There is a search function that we have implemented in it quite successfully in the past few months. Thank you to the wonderful team at JupyterBook for helping us implement that. So you'll come to the Turing Way with a specific question, looking for a specific resource, and then you can kind of spend a bit more time doom scrolling in between meetings through the rest of the resources. So we like to think of it as like a really specific domain Wikipedia that has been built from community knowledge. So, as I said, there are 250 chapters in this wonderful, wonderful book. I've chosen to pull out just 5 little pieces that I think that you all today would really appreciate hearing about. And the first has come up a little bit, but it is about how to actually get started with GitHub. So the Turing Way is a project hosted on GitHub, and it is a tool that is growing in popularity in many research and data science projects to be used not just for code, but also for project management and also for documentation. So we at the Turing Way have created a guide that sits inside the Turing Way. It's a little meta about how to actually get started. And there are 3 different pathways within these guides. How to get started for your PM unit, your project managers, your product owners. Then there are also the people who might be newer to the team, who would be using GitHub more for the code and the version control features, and everything in between. Now, many of us here in the room, I'm going to assume everyone, works with health data, and we all know that health data is not necessarily the easiest to work with. And so some of our community members have written a wonderful chapter on missing data and how to work with structured missingness. And these are guides that are written assuming no background knowledge and help to kind of onboard people new to the team and also to share ideas. And again, these are all living documents, so if anyone was perusing this while I am talking and says, oh, actually this needs to be expanded a bit, please feel free to make an issue, make a PR. I'm sure we can do it by the end of the 10 minutes. But this is one that I think would be really useful to many people here. The next would be about the trustworthy research environments. Now, as we've talked about, not all code can be shared, and certainly when it comes to health data and personal identifiable data, medical data, that also can't be shared. And so many people coming new from a statistics background, perhaps from an academic background, may not have worked with the difficulties that come with egressing and ingressing incredibly sensitive data. So there are guides on working within TREs or data safe havens, as they're sometimes called, whether or not that is one that is owned by a larger organisation or ones that a university has specifically spun up. We try to write these as agnostic as possible. Within this chapter, there is also things about differential privacy and different ways of working with privacy-preserving techniques within your ML pipelines. So the fourth kind of big piece that I wanted to pull out is many of the health data research projects, or really data-intensive health research projects, are increasingly involving members of the public and patients into the actual workflow instead of just using them as a committee to say, should we do this research? What research would you be interested in us doing? What questions may you have? And so we have started building out resources on how to involve actively and go from having public advisors, be research subjects, be research participants, to be collaborators and contributors. And this is a growing resource that started in November last year, about this time last year, which was really wonderful. And the final, we've said the word a lot today, and I've said it a lot up here, is reusability. So there are wonderful templates that the Turing Way both has on its GitHub repo that you can use, or within the guide itself. This is a specific repository that is helpful to set up a there is a RAP one, but there is also a reproducible project through and through, which is truly wonderful. And again, if any of you have any more experience with this and want to improve it, want to add it, want to create a new one, you can. This is something that, as I'll say again and again, it is a living document. It only exists because of the knowledge that people have contributed to the project. So why does this actually matter within the grand scheme of things? I come from an academic background, and academia places this huge amount of emphasis on outcomes. But as we kind of shift from this academic view into something that is, again, NHS, that is the Alan Turing Institute, that is different organisations that are not beholden to numbers of papers published or publish or perish, we start to be able to embrace these open science practices, these open source, this FOSS, this free and open source software mentality, this ethos that will lead us towards building something better together. And when we are trying to build these massive data science projects, these massive ML models, what essentially we have to do is have a really strong foundation that allows us to do work that means that the outcome is going to be reproducible, that is going to be reusable, that is also collaborative in its way. We can't do something without all of the right people in the room having discussions, so that we can ultimately have these research practices that build this foundation for really high quality outcomes. And the goal of all of that is not necessarily openness in itself. We say open research, open science, open source, but the goal isn't openness. It's not, we're trying to make all of the data available to everyone, but what we are trying to do is create an equitable knowledge exchange. Because things like this, everything that we're doing, all the projects that you are all on, can't exist in a vacuum. It takes this combined approach where you draw on this expertise of reproducibility, that draws on this expertise of ethics and how the results of what we output from our models will affect a community. And ideally, there's a lot more to collaboration than just sitting on email threads together saying, yeah, that's a great idea. And that is that idea of how we build better research when we build it together. So to kind of sum up, and hopefully you'll have a better idea about what the Turing Way is now, but it is an open guide throughout its entire open principles to data science, to research practices, to data analytics, to different projects that happen, that is built and maintained and improved because the community is diverse. And together we are able to work to make sure that everything that is done, hopefully by the community and also by the communities tangent and adjacent to it, they are reproducible, ethical, collaborative and inclusive for everyone. I've just said a lot, and now this is where I get to my pitch of the day. The goal of the Turing Way community, it sounds this big, massive thing, and it is now. It started in 2019, and it has been growing ever since. But with all of the Turing Way community, the idea is to meet you where you are, and that is the core idea of the resources. So if you want to join the community, if you want to learn a new skill, if you want to learn GitHub, if you want to understand any of those pieces, if you're working with missing data project, or if you're working on a new synthetic data project and you're not quite sure how to get set up, you come to the Turing Way to learn a new skill. It's also something that you can share skills back to us, whether that be a one-off, you can host a workshop, or if you decide to write a chapter, improve it, you can also go through and say, that's a bit of a spelling mistake in a published book, I'll fix that. The Turing Way is a space where you can do that. There is a constant improvement, constant growth within this resource. So if you come in as a mentor, it is incredibly valuable, and we do thank that. And if you want to get up here like me, but at future conferences and talk about the Turing Way, there is also space. The idea is that wherever you are, if you're new to reproducibility, reusability, there is resources for you. But if you're an old hat and just want to kind of preach more about it, there's also space within the Turing Way. The whole point is this is a participatory project. So in order to kind of guide us on the way forward as researchers, as analysts, as analytics-y people, as people who play with data, as scientists, as who we are, as practitioners of a research cycle, at whichever point that is, we do try and strive to do work that is the best possible. That's why we're all here sharing ideas, having these wonderful conversations. And so the best way to do that is to continue to have these conversations, to be part of a community, and to have an active practice of collaboration. So I'm going to have some final 2 slides to say a massive thank you. I would not be up here talking about 250 chapters if there were not over 500 people who have sat down, who have written content, who have edited content, who have had conversations about ideas. So truly thank you to the Turing Way community, and may it expand even more and may we struggle even more next time to get more people on the slides. This whole thing wouldn't happen without the founding kind of principles of Kirsty Whitaker, and then the community leaders Anne Lee Steele, Malvika Sharan, and Alexander Arabo Alvarez, and many, many more people who are the core team. I also want to thank the Jupiter Book team and the infrastructure maintenance group who help manage and oversee all of our CI/CD pipelines. So, thank you everyone. See you at the next Turing Way Collaboration Cafe. If there are no questions.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
We could just, there are like 4 small questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go for it.
So the first question from Burton, there will be stickers for the Turing Way.
Unfortunately, we're currently out of stickers. I did not bring some. Sorry. There were more meant to be printed.
And I've got a second question for Nicola Fatin. It says, who funds the Turing Way work?
Or who founded it? So Kirsty.
Funds
Funds it. Goodwill and biscuits. So there's a few different kind of resources. So the Alan Turing Institute does kind of support a lot of the core roles, so that we have a maintainers group. There's a core contributors group that are people who are employed by the Alan Turing Institute, who are allowed to spend 10% of their time on it. But it is an open source project, and so there's someone in Nebraska just kind of holding it all up, guitar style.
Thank you very much. And just one last question from Frambert. It says, are there signs of improvement in science academic research on the reproducibility crisis?
I will answer that question from my background as a neuroscientist. I would say in some fields, yes, in other fields, no, and it kind of becomes this awareness problem, is that as we have more and more unwieldy data sets that we work with, these more and more ways in which to publish papers, whether that be on a bioarchive or just on archive itself. This idea of sharing code, sharing analyses, sharing different bits and pieces is becoming more prevalent, but at the same time the volume of everything else is also increasing. So the signal to noise ratio is still only slightly better than it was kind of about 10 years ago. But I do think that because there are conferences, there are workshops, there is more eyes on this as kind of a crisis. There is a lot more publicity, and there are things like registered reports and pre-registration that I think is starting to almost turn the tide in the favour. And again, if we can move from reproducibility to also reproducibility and reusability, I think that'll be a fantastic kind of future in the way forward. Cool.
Thank you very much, Sophia. That's was it. Now we've got the word for Alex.
I haven't got any slides, so you guys will be all right. When I was invited to come in and talk in the open source conference, Zoe said, I just said to Zoe and say, "Oh, how long do I have?" And she said, 10 minutes. And I said, "You really don't know me, do you?" Most of you probably know me that I can talk for England. So my name is Alex Cheung. I am currently the lead for AnalystX. So it's an honor today to talk to you about something really close to my heart, is the power of open source and the vibrant communities that we have created through the health and care sector. So again, today I just want to give you stories about how we built the Python community, and then also how do we then reach out to the wider community through the power of AnalystX. Now, Probably some of you might not know, 3 years ago, I've got 3 people come to me. Mary has just left now. She went to go on to get her train. So Craig, Mary, and Aruba came to me. I was running Analyst X at the time, and they said, we deal with massive amount of data every day. Looking at how do we then build reports to look at operational data, turning them into insight. What can we do? We have got a lot of software. We're using a lot of software, but has anybody considered using R, Python, open source to build those reports for just something just pop up on my screen in here, as per usual. They just say, how do we then use cutting edge technology? How do we then build something collaborative? How do we then make something transparent? How do we then break down the silo of working across the NHS? Have you thought about, or what can we do? They showcase it to me and then say, look at what Python can do. Look at what we can build in here and how we can actually share something across to the network in here. Now, we know that open source now provide us with the tools we need to tackle some of the most complex challenges in the NHS. But using the tool itself is not enough. So what do we need? Other people. It's about community like Python, where professional comes together from different area, co-creating some things that we can share the knowledge and solve the problems together. Now, NHS-Python, as you probably know, is a grassroots community dedicated to promote the use of Python in healthcare, data and analytics. You all know that Python is a powerhouse of data science software development. Our aim is to harness the versatility to tackle NHS-specific challenges. Now, since the inception of the NHS-Python, it has grown into now a collaborative space with 1,400 members in there, where analysts, developer, and also the enthusiasts share their best practices, resources, and also solution. Members are contributing to open repository, participating in hackathon, and also supporting each other through the forum and workshop as well. How do we then reach out further, and what is that next steps that we are currently doing? We work with the R community very kindly with Zoe. We're building this open source forum. And what we do is we're breaking down the silo, looking at how we connect with each other. What is that next step we took? We work with RAP team, learning about how do we create the reproducible analytical pipeline? How do we feed into the repository? How do we then enhance the both language together? They both are very good at a different area. Python excels in automation and machine learning, while R is really good at in statistical analysis and visualization. How do we build that together? What do we need to do? So now, what we have done is, myself in Analyst X has linked up all together. What is the underpinning language, or what do we need to do in data visualization, in data engineering, process mining, and GIS? How do we use that in R, and how do we use that in Python? How do we build it all together? Now, I'm short of time, and I'm going to actually do the last bit, and then I will pass it over to Zoe as well. So in the NHS, the data analysis is often needed to be repeated under the tight deadline. I mentioned about RAP earlier. How do we build that open source library? How do we help that to automate the process, and then also ensuring the accuracy, the efficiency, and reproducibility? So RAP is that just the technical, it's not just a technical framework. They are a shift in mindset, changing our culture in the NHS, and also encouraging analysts to build thinking beyond the project and contribution to share their knowledge as well. Now, I'm going to wrap up. What is the road ahead? I've spoken to Zoe as well. Later on, she will talk about some things that, what is the call out, what do we need to do, and what is the next step, and we share pretty much the same thing. Now, the road ahead for me, or for us, this is something that from NHS, and I have got to mention this, so don't laugh. As we're looking at the potential, how we're going to be communicating, how we're going to be sharing the report, we need to start to explore the opportunity to expand our reach, integrate it with other initiatives like Federated Data Platform, and deepen our collaboration with academic and also industry partners as well. We are committed to improve the accessibility and the inclusion to ensure the community represent the diversity of the NHS workforce and patient we serve. I just wanted to emphasize before passing over to Zoe is that open source is more than just a technology. It's a philosophy. It's a place we share knowledge, break down the silo of working and building something greater than ourselves through the community like Python, like R, like data science. We provide an open source that power transferred not just to how we work, but how we think and how we collaborate with each other as well. Now, Zoe, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about the next step.
AV time to find my thing. Okay, that gives AV a bit of time to find my slide. Whoa. Slides, please. I feel like Chris Whitty. Next slide, please. I'll never be that great. I could fill in, but it's at the end of 2 days. It's getting quite difficult to find things to talk about. And I want to talk, well, although I have to commend, no, there's a word. I love the slides. The pictures from Turing Way, these are art forms. These have been drawn not by an AI, I don't think. No, I'm waiting for my slides. Sorry. They're just coming through. And I'm just saying about Turing Way's images are amazing. Right, this is my slide. Thank you very much. So I am Zoe Turner. This is the final talk of the conference. So thank you very much for the last 2 days. And it's about a subject that's very dear to my heart, which is NHS-R community. But this isn't a picture of NHS-R community. This is when I started learning R, which was in 2018, which was when NHS-R community started. I was working in this building. I was in a mental health trust. I was an analyst. I'd heard of R. Many people here have heard of R, if not before coming, certainly today. There were only 3 people, I think, knew it at the time, out of about 11,000 staff members in that trust. And they'd all been self-taught. And if there's one thing I've ever sort of come to terms with about myself is that I only get so far with self-teaching. There's a lot of projects that are half finished at home from self-teaching. So with R, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to get the software. I didn't know what to do with it when I got it. And I, at the time, working in this particular building, it is like this. This is from the 1800s when it was drawn. So it's a very old hospital that's been repurposed. I sat separately from the data analyst team that I was working with. So I physically had to walk out of one really old office, down a dingy corridor. If you've ever worked in these hospitals, they are not really for modern use, into another one. I have to walk through 2 doors to go and ask for help on data analysis. The feelings of asking for help, for questions, physically, at that time, was immense. These people were here to help me. I was working on their data, but I was nervous as anything going in and saying, can I ask a question? I did go in one day in 2018. I can't remember what the question was. I mean, who can when it's a very simple question? But I do remember that colleague saying, oh, have you heard about this thing called NHS-R Community? They've got a free course on. They're doing a workshop in Wales and Leeds. And I remember that point vividly. And as the rest, as they say, is history. Now, this should be a talk about R. That will make sense in a second. It's an open analytics conference, but instead I'm going to talk about the community side of the name NHS-R Community. And it's about something called the psychology of sense of community. Now, this was new to me, new acronyms. I only found it when I was looking for these slides. Eerily close to RPYSOC. That wasn't intended, but if you get mixed up, just think of that, RPYSOC. Hence the connections. And I'd never thought, becoming an analyst or a data scientist, that I'd give the discipline of community psychology much thought. I studied philosophy originally, but I had to give it a lot of thought as where I am now today, thinking about NHS-R community, but also I was thinking about the community part for a very long time. It's easy to say NHS is great and that R is wonderful, or we can make the NHS even better. But there's a lot of feelings about a community that are really hard to prove, to sort of pin down. And reassuringly, a professor of psychology, Seymour Bernard Saracen, presented the concept of PSOC, which is what's on the screen at the moment. The emphasis is mine. no, it's not an emphasis on this one. The sense of community in science fiction fandom. I found this paper. Seems a bit random, but it felt like it was very familiar to NHS-R community. He said, it was noted as having said, it necessarily implies a value judgment not compatible with hard science. We're analysts, we like data, we like metrics. Yet he stated, you know when you have it and you know when you don't have it. That's my emphasis part. Two further authors came along, Macmillan and Chavez, also called David, like the robot that we saw yesterday called David, expanded on this in 1985, and they revisited it and they renamed some of the terms in 1996 to detail 4 specific but interconnected elements. I'm going to rush through them. The words on their own don't necessarily trigger much thought, but I will say what they mean. Membership spirit became spirit, valuing friendship and belonging over boundaries. Influence became trust, but really having community norms and an equal distribution of power. Integration and fulfillment of needs, or call it trade. It's maintaining a positive sense of togetherness and the importance of similarity between members. And a shared emotional connection, or called art or collective memories, sharing of common experiences, I would say stickers for us, representing the community's values and traditions, and that's probably the mugs later. Oh, sorry, there was a picture going there. The emphasis on this one, again, is mine. The authors suggest that the more people interact, the more likely they are to form close relationships. The more positive this interaction, the stronger the bond develop. Now, it does feel like the most obvious thing to write, but what interactions would they be for something like NHS-R Community or NHS-Pycom or Turing Way? What works for something like us? Is it an event like this conference, which has been fantastic, or is it something else? Questions. Have to have a GIF in. So back to my opening story. When I was reasonably comfortable with my role as an analyst, I knew code, I knew SQL at that time, I didn't know the data. People talk about the lack of water cooler events and chats that we can have remotely, but it was really hard walking into that room and asking a bunch of fellow analysts something about something I felt I should know, or something they told me but I'd already forgotten, or going in and saying, I'm sorry, I still don't understand. But every question was an interaction. I'd get the answer because people are so nice and they just kept telling me the same answer over and over again, or I'd learn something new, completely new that I hadn't even thought about, like NHS-R Community, which is why I'm here today. One thing that PSOC research didn't really mention was the shared purpose or common goals, which is kind of what we see in our documentation often, particularly in the healthcare. If we think about communities we belong to, they often don't have precise purposes. We have shared values or views, or just participate because it's immense fun. A running club, now I don't run, but I'm just assuming, so please do correct me. They don't exist to get everybody in their local area to run. They just get together because they like running. I don't like running, they do. NHS-R Community, though, can get together to push towards something. We can work together in an action. And spoiler, we already do these things. Which way am I doing it, sorry? Number 1, we need access to the right tools. People are still struggling with access to the open source tools. In a sense, we're still fighting for them. We wrote statement on tools, we extended it from more than R to GitHub to Python. We keep adding to it, and again, like Turing Way, you can add to it too. We can't really do the analysis that we want to do without having the tools. The second thing, which was also referenced earlier on today, is the Goldacre Review. It was published 2 years ago, and we were asked then to publish openly. But it's not the default. It takes a while to do. Quite often we're still in this practice of producing our analysis code and then publishing it at the end of it. It is good, we heard it earlier, that we will get some other code from some very big projects, but there is this danger highlighted by the Government Service Manual. I'll just go to the emphasis bit. There's a costly period of time at the end of the project checking your code is safe to be released. So if you have a very big piece of analysis code, I've got loads like that, checking it at the end is really the end of the project. That's when you don't really have the energy or the time. We might push that release date back. We might make that release date never. So we just have to turn it around, but that's something that we are doing as well. So we're doing it, but we're also not doing it. And we need the capacity, these are old slides, it says build, we're missing build. We need to build capacity in the analytical workforce. We've had very little funding for training and development over the years as I've been an analyst, and that's been about a decade in the NHS. And things are tough now. They're really, really tough for finances. But NHS-R community has been training each other. I did the original Train the Trainer with a couple of people in this room. And we have volunteers for webinars and workshops, and we share that knowledge with each other. We become better coders because of it. But we also share on YouTube, where people can catch up later when they've caught up in their learning. Some of our really top-reaching YouTube videos are from 2020, and they're quite advanced statistics or programming, so people will get your work and your sharing and your knowledge when they're ready for it. They're really big. 3 massive things. We're working towards it, but what can we actually do to contribute to this? I think we can do this with small actions. Getting involved with your community. This was a call on a couple of the other talks we've just had about communities. It's not just code. We can get involved with other things as well. Designs, we've got the conference, we've got events, and we now have a web page from our website, which is getting involved. If you can think of other things, you can add to it. It doesn't have to be just code. And when you do that, when you get involved with what we do, do issues and pull requests on our repositories, build code bases or training courses, we will recognise that as a fellow. We have 50 badges that we've had commissioned. The problem is they didn't arrive in time for the conference, but we will be able to send those out to 50 people in the next few weeks as we get these notifications in. If you want to be a fellow, tell us what you've contributed to in NHS-R, or contribute now and then do it. And the final and most important action, just ask questions. They seem really easy to do, but they're not, but they are great. The simple ones are the best ones. The ones that you feel really nervous about, that you feel, I shouldn't ask this, I should know this, I've already asked it, I've forgotten, I don't understand. People love answering your questions. If you give training, when people ask the questions at the end, they love that because it means you've engaged and you're getting their knowledge, and people like sharing their thoughts. So you'll be leading them as much as they are teaching you. So please just start small. Do questions. And thank you to Natasha, who hasn't coded anything, but she did these beautiful slides and designs. I'm going to leave that one for the closing thanks for the conference. We're going to change over to the slides, and I'm going to seamlessly move into closing the day, unless there are some questions from the talk. No questions. I asked you to ask questions, people. Ah. I expect questions later. I'll be on a train soon. It's a long journey. I might get stuck. I want questions. So thank you to everybody, to the presenters, to the sponsors, that's Health Foundation, Strategy Unit, Jumping Rivers, and Royal Statistical Societies, for people who brought their stickers and people who contributed to those. That's not on there, but I think that's an important feature of our days. University of Edinburgh for helping with the unconference. It was a wonderful session, yet again. And the ICC staff and the audio-visual support, thanks to you two. We've had a few technical issues and we've really worked through those. Appreciate that. There's a lot of thank yous. This is why I had 2 slides. Continued gratitude to whether you were in person or virtual. Thank you for attending. There's no conference if you are not on stage and if you're not watching, and also if you're not asking questions. To NHS-R Community Committee for helping arranging this over many, many months. We met very regularly and we covered quite a lot of points, and we were still learning. So we'll still be learning from you too. So as well as feedback, as well as questions, we'll also want feedback. And NHS-Pycom to help us on the day. There's been people running around and helping whenever they've just seen a point that they could help with. Natasha being particularly our visual designer in these things. Charlotte and Mache at the front desk for working behind the scenes. To Kaylee, she wasn't here because she's been away, but she was here last year. We're looking forward to her return in NHS-R community. And above all, and I'm sure this is a big round of applause, and we can end on this, to Bianca, who basically organised this event. Thank you. That's another slide, sorry. We will send you a questionnaire for your feedback. you can still ask questions. That's absolutely fine, honestly. If I say ask questions and then I say, please stop asking questions, I've contradicted myself. Stay in touch, get involved. And this is a little quote from ChatGPT just before we close. We encourage each of you to take the insights, connections, and inspirations gained here back to your work, your teams, and your communities. Let's continue to innovate and make meaningful changes to patient care ultimately. I'm going to say thank you very much and close the conference, I hope, for the streaming and everybody else, because we're going to do the person's raffle now, in-person raffle.